Hey guys, today we're stepping straight into a smoky September morning in 1666. You wake up to the choking smell of burning wood and something sweeter, baking bread gone wrong. The narrow lanes of London creak with heat. Somewhere nearby, fire cracks like laughter. You rub your eyes, pull on your boots, and head outside, where the city is about to have the worst Monday in its entire history. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Have a nice day. The smell is coming from Thomas Farriner's bakery on Pudding Lane. His ovens are still warm from yesterday, but something went horribly wrong overnight. A spark, small, ordinary, has leapt from the oven to a stack of firewood and turned your entire block into a bonfire waiting to happen. The walls are timber, the roofs are pitch-soaked, and the wind is in a generous mood. You run, not heroically, just in the way any sleepy Londoner would when their mattress turns into a smoke signal. The street's already alive with shouting. Neighbors in nightshirts are tossing buckets, some still clutching their mugs of beer, which honestly feels on brand for the 1660s. There's no fire department. That won't exist for another 200 years. What you've got is the bucket brigade, basically everyone with two arms and something vaguely watertight. It's like trying to put out a flamethrower with teaspoons. You join in anyway, passing a heavy leather bucket from hand to hand until your arms scream. Someone's yelling, "Break down the houses!" But it's too soon. The fire's still small, whatever that means when your eyebrows are already singed. You glance up. The sky's turning copper. Thick smoke rolls over the rooftops like a storm cloud with opinions. You try not to panic, but the fire's jumping streets now, hopping between wooden buildings like a very angry frog. And here's the twist. London has been dry for weeks. Everything's brittle, ready to ignite. You can almost hear the city inhaling. Historians still argue whether Thomas Farriner properly doused his ovens that night. Some think it wasn't even his fault. Maybe a spark drifted from a neighbor's chimney, or maybe it was the rats. People blame rats for everything. But the truth? You'll never know. All you know is that it started here, with you blinking in the dark and realizing, oh, this isn't just a fire. It's the fire. A soldier pushes past you with an axe. His job, start tearing down houses to make fire breaks. But you're too close to the Tower of London for anyone to give that order lightly. Blowing up homes is technically civic policy, but nobody wants to be the first to suggest dynamite while people are still making toast. So the fire keeps growing, and you keep sweating. A quirky detail you'd probably never guess. Londoners used to use crocodile dung as face cream. Seriously, totally unrelated, but it tells you something about the city's general approach to science. So when someone insists that vinegar will stop the flames, nobody questions it. You even see a guy tossing wine at the blaze like it's a barbecue gone rogue. Bold move. By late morning, the wind has picked up. It's no longer a helpful breeze, it's a co-conspirator. Sparks ride the gusts like tiny dragons, landing on rooftops 2-3 streets away. You hear glass shatter, someone's window giving up the fight. And you realize your escape route? It's shrinking. You dash down a narrow alley and nearly collide with a goat. Why is there always a goat? It bleats at you with judgment. Somewhere, a family drags out a mattress and a silver tea set. People are tossing entire wardrobes into the Thames. Some are crying, others are oddly calm. Like this is just one more bizarre episode in the eternal soap opera of city life. You try to find your uncle's place on Fish Street Hill, but it's already swallowed in smoke. You squint through the haze and see what looks like a wedding cake melting, a 3-story townhouse bending in the heat. You don't stop, you just run. By evening, you're exhausted, covered in soot, and wondering whether the city will ever be the same. Spoiler, it won't. But right now, all you want is a bucket, a miracle, or a working teleportation device. As night falls, the glow over London is no longer romantic. It's biblical. The fire isn't just a thing, it's the event. Tomorrow, it'll get worse. But tonight, you huddle with strangers in a field beyond the city wall, eyes wide, watching your city burn. You don't sleep that night. No one does. The field where you've ended up, usually a place for children's games and gentlemanly stick fencing, is now crowded with families huddled under bundles of salvaged bedding. Somewhere nearby, a baby is wailing, while a man mutters about his lost inventory of wigs. You sit down hard against a wheelbarrow piled with random treasures, a pillow, a cracked tea set, a grandfather clock still ticking stubbornly as London burns behind it. Just as the sky begins to pale, you hear the shouting start again. The fire hasn't stopped, it's transformed. No longer just a blaze, it's a monster with a will of its own. The wind has picked up like it's getting in on the destruction. And guess what? It's now blowing east, which is exactly where you are. You grab your water bucket and run back into the city with a band of exhausted volunteers. Nobody looks heroic, not even you. Everyone's soot-streaked, blistered, and slightly wild-eyed. Ahead, towering flames writhe above rooftops. Every house that catches erupts in a thunderclap of snapping beams and shattering tiles. Streets that once smelled like fresh bread and manure now reek of scorched oak, molten lead, and old panic. One house near Newgate Market doesn't just catch fire, it explodes. Turns out someone was hoarding barrels of brandy in the basement. Fire plus alcohol equals kaboom. The roof launches skyward like a flaming hat. You hit the ground hard. Your ears ring, and when you sit up, your sleeve is scorched. Someone, maybe your cousin Mary, yells your name, but her voice is swallowed by the blaze. You stagger to your feet. A woman nearby is dragging a chest nearly twice her size, screaming that it contains the history of her bloodline. You don't have the heart to tell her it'll probably be ash before she hits the next street. Near the Western Market, a cluster of civilians and soldiers form a shaky bucket line. You jump in. The leather buckets feel heavier than before, and the water's evaporating mid-air. An old man gestures towards St. Lawrence Church and shouts, "Stone doesn't burn." You wish that were true. At this heat, stone crumbles, cracks, and sometimes explodes like it's trying to escape. One key figure remains suspiciously absent, the Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. Yesterday, when guards knocked on his door asking permission to tear down houses to stop the fire, he allegedly yawned and muttered, "A woman could piss it out," then went back to bed. No kidding, that may be the most unhelpful response to an apocalypse ever recorded. Historians still argue whether Bloodworth's negligence directly worsened the disaster. Some say the system failed him, others say he simply failed the system. Either way, no one's seen him in hours. You imagine he's hiding behind a particularly sturdy curtain somewhere with a very guilty cup of tea. You make your way toward Cheapside Market. It was once bustling with goldsmiths, grocers, bakers, the whole upper crust of London's merchant class. Now it's chaos. A jewelry shop crumples in on itself like a paper lantern. You dodge a falling signboard and dive into a narrow alley where a coal vendor is tossing sacks of charcoal onto a cart. "Can't burn what's already burned," he says cheerfully. Here's a weird little fact. Some shopkeepers are still trying to do business. You pass a wine seller who's literally standing in front of his store, which is partially on fire, offering samples. "Half off everything," he calls. You nod, admire his commitment to capitalism, and keep running. You can't help noticing something eerie. The fire seems to have a strategy. It's skipping stone buildings, gliding over alleys, lunging for timbered roofs like it knows what it's doing. You get the feeling this isn't just nature gone wild, it's more like London's being hunted. You see a familiar face, someone from last night, helping an old blind man out of a smoking doorway. You rush to assist, taking the man's arm. He mutters something about how the last time this happened, Cromwell was still around. You're not sure if he's hallucinating or just very historically aware, but you nod anyway and guide him away from the fire. Evening again. The city glows red, not from the sunset, but from what feels like a city-wide furnace. You've seen neighborhoods you grew up in vanish in seconds. Churches fall, towers fold, and still the fire grows. You find shelter in an abandoned stone monastery. The walls are thick, cold, and so far immune. You sit down against the stones and try to breathe. Your lungs ache. Your hands are raw. Your thoughts are a jumble of fear, exhaustion, and weirdly, guilt. Like maybe you could have saved something, someone. Outside, the horizon flickers like a warning. London, the mighty, the royal, the sprawling beast of empire, is being turned into a bonfire. And tomorrow, going to be worse. Morning doesn't bring relief, just a new kind of panic. You wake to the sound of bells, though not ringing in harmony. They're clanging desperately, uncoordinated, like the city itself is crying out. The monastery's thick walls have held through the night, but as you step outside, your breath catches. The skyline of London, what's left of it, is jagged with ruin. Smoke spirals in every direction, and ashes float down like snow. It's eerily quiet for a moment, the calm that only comes after enough people have given up screaming. But then, movement, a fresh exodus, hundreds, no, thousands of people flooding the streets, carrying everything from chickens to chamber pots. You join the stream, limping beside a cart where a boy no older than 12 leads a goat. "It's all I could save," he says, as if daring you to laugh. You don't, you just nod. The goat bleats and gives you a look like, "Same, buddy." As you move east, rumors spread faster than the flames. "St. Paul's is on fire," someone shouts. No way, you think. It's made of stone, and besides, it's sacred. Surely it can't. But as you round the corner near Ludgate Hill, you see it for yourself. St. Paul's Cathedral, the mighty symbol of English pride, is glowing from within, like it swallowed the fire and is now exhaling it through the stained glass windows. A bookshop nestled in its southern walls had been storing hundreds of texts, many handwritten, some centuries old. Paper, ink, leather bindings, the perfect kindling. It's all feeding the blaze. You stand frozen as the flames chew through the great dome. Pieces fall. Pages flutter out of shattered windows, blackened confetti raining down. One lands at your feet. You pick it up. It's half a psalm, still readable. You pocket it without thinking. A man near you wails, "The cathedral has stood for 500 years." Another answers, "Not anymore, it hasn't." Both are right, but neither of them moves. You don't either. Eventually, smoke forces your feet into motion again. The crowd pushes toward the River Thames. Boats, any boats, are now prime real estate. You reach the water's edge just in time to see a skirmish between a merchant and two dock workers over a half-sunk barge. One man threatens the other with a burning torch. The irony is lost on no one. You opt for the safer route, across London Bridge, or what's left of it. The fire hasn't fully taken the bridge yet, but it's coming, fast. You dash across the stone structure, dodging panicked cattle and hysterical humans. There's a sheep that refuses to move. People trip over it, curse it, shove it. It stands there like a woolly monument to passive resistance. Midway across, a strange detail catches your eye. A man carefully lowering a violin into the river like it's a Viking burial. You almost stop to ask why, but then a wall of smoke chases you off the bridge. On the south bank, things aren't much better. Refugees have overwhelmed Southwark. A woman tries to sell you a sausage roll from a tray balanced on her head. "Only slightly burned," she says. You raise an eyebrow, but take it anyway. Hunger is not picky during a firestorm. You collapse onto a patch of grass near a convent. It's midday. The sun is somewhere overhead, but the sky is orange-gray. You watch as flames leap building to building like wild animals, somehow skipping the theater district. Shakespeare must have struck a deal with someone upstairs, you mutter. Historians still debate why certain areas, like the Globe Theater, were spared. Was it geography, wind, dumb luck, or divine appreciation for a good monologue? No one really knows. You overhear a clergyman ranting about sin, fire, and divine punishment. It's judgment, he claims, for coffee houses and novels. You're too tired to argue, but you do wonder what sort of deity specifically hates caffeine and fiction. As evening nears, you notice something unexpected. Teams of workers with tools, organized, focused. King Charles II has arrived, or at least his men have. Finally, the government is doing something other than wringing its powdered hands. They're blowing up houses. Yes, on purpose. Using gunpowder to create fire breaks, gaps in the tightly packed buildings to slow the fire's march. You stand back as a whole row of homes is reduced to rubble with a single coordinated boom. It's terrifying, and it works. You're handed a torch and told to help evacuate the next row. You hesitate. One of the houses belongs to your friend Thomas. You helped him hang the door yourself last year. Now you're being asked to set it on fire. He appears beside you, panting, covered in soot. Do it, he says simply, before the fire does. So, you do. The house collapses quickly, and as the flames die, something else starts to flicker. Hope. A thin, flickering thread of it, but hope all the same. The night sky is darker now, not from the smoke, but because the fire is finally dying down. You've been working beside royal engineers, clergy, and regular folks like yourself, pulling down buildings, carrying buckets, whispering prayers under your breath without even realizing it. You haven't slept in what feels like a decade, but somehow your arms keep moving, like they're possessed by purpose. And then, quiet. Not complete silence, no. The city still crackles, groans, and occasionally spits out flames like it's grumpy about being tamed. But compared to the chaos before, it's peaceful. You walk the new fire break, surveying what you and the others have done. For the first time, the fire hesitates. It hisses at the rubble like it's offended, then pulls back. It's not gone, but it knows it's losing. You spend the next day helping dig out survivors. Some injured, some just dazed and buried under collapsed buildings. One man is pulled out holding a completely unburnt copy of the Bible, which he insists is a sign. You nod politely, though your back is screaming and you're mostly thinking about potatoes. Then something strange happens. People start laughing. Not many, and not for long, but here and there, little bubbles of tired giggles float up through the dust. A woman tells you her cow outran the fire and then gave birth. Someone else swears they saw pigeons flying in formation to spell sorry. You doubt it, but it's a funny image. The king himself shows up. Yup, Charles II, tall, curly-haired, and more fashionable than any man fighting a city fire has any right to be. He walks among the survivors, talks to blackened children, hands out coins. It's probably PR, but still, it matters. People need to see something that looks like leadership, even if it comes with lace cuffs. Historians still argue whether Charles truly helped with the firefighting, or just showed up for the aftermath. Either way, his presence boosts morale. And it doesn't hurt that he orders fresh bread and ale delivered to the camps. You eat yours sitting in a half-collapsed tavern. The walls are scorched, but somehow the sign still hangs, the lion's head. You toast it silently with a mug that's more soot than ceramic. By now, the fire has consumed nearly everything from the tower to Temple Bar. Over 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and several major public buildings are gone. But the death toll? Surprisingly low. Only a handful of confirmed deaths, which seems impossible, until you remember that most poor folks weren't exactly registered anywhere. So the truth is, no one really knows how many people the fire claimed. You volunteer to help clear debris near what used to be Fleet Street. There, in the rubble, you uncover something amazing: a buried cellar, perfectly intact. Inside, barrels of preserved apples and pickled onions. You and your crew practically cry. A few hours later, you're eating sweet sour lunch like kings. You're still chewing when someone finds a box of dominoes, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of a game, ash still falling around you. That's the thing. Humans are weirdly good at pretending things are normal. Not everyone's so cheerful, though. You pass a preacher screaming about Judgment Day. He says the fire is just the beginning. Behind him, a pickpocket works the crowd. You don't bother telling the preacher. Honestly, the guy probably thinks theft is part of the prophecy. One of the more bizarre moments of the day, you see a group of men carrying a full-sized painting of Queen Elizabeth I through the ruins. When asked why, they say, "She got us through the Armada. She'll get us through this." You decide not to press the logic. You've seen weirder. That night, the fire is officially declared contained. You sleep beside a fountain, using your boots as a pillow. Not ideal, but no flames lick the sky, no buildings explode. Just the soft sounds of the river nearby and someone softly singing a hymn. The next morning, the city is a moonscape. Everything familiar has been twisted, blackened, or erased. You walk to where your old neighborhood used to be. It's just outlines now, stone foundations like scars in the earth. But you find something small and remarkable, a frying pan, still intact. You pick it up. It's warm, from the sun, not from fire. That feels important. And just like that, people begin rebuilding. Not officially, not yet, but you see it in gestures. A woman sweeping ash from a stoop. A man salvaging bricks. Children stacking firewood. You catch yourself making a mental note of where the nearest well is. Because even now, even in this hollowed-out version of your city, life insists on happening. You stare up at the skeleton of what used to be St. Paul's Cathedral. You remember how it looked in the flames, how it fell, how its stones exploded like stars. Now, it just waits. But there are whispers that a new cathedral will rise, even grander, under the guidance of a young architect named Christopher Wren. Maybe that's the point, you think. Not just that the fire destroyed, but that it cleared. And in that clearing, new stories will rise. You wake up coughing, not from smoke this time, but from dust. Fine gray particles float through the air like London's new permanent weather. Around you, people are already stirring. The burned husks of buildings cast long morning shadows, and the few remaining trees wear coats of ash like morbid snow. You stretch, groan, and start walking. No particular destination. Just walking because your legs remember how. The streets you once knew like the back of your soot-covered hand are unrecognizable. Even the Thames seems quieter, like it's exhausted from reflecting so much fire. Your path takes you past a merchant, trying to reopen shop with a plank, 2 crates, and exactly 1 shoe for sale. You pause. It's not your size, but you give him a nod like, respect. He nods back. No words needed. You eventually find yourself standing at the edge of a small camp built from broken doors and bits of sailcloth. Refugees, survivors, you. A boy offers you soup in a cracked bowl. It's mostly warm water and 1 heroic carrot, but you thank him like it's a royal feast. Across the square, a group of officials huddle, pointing at maps. You recognize one, Robert Hooke. Yes, that Hooke. The guy who studied cells, gravity, and basically half of everything. He's now tasked with rebuilding the city. That's the twist no one saw coming. Science meets city planning. Historians still debate whether Hooke or Christopher Wren deserves more credit for what comes next. But you're pretty sure it was more like a Renaissance buddy cop movie than anything else. One drafts new city layouts, the other wants grand domes and wide boulevards. The dream? No more wooden death traps. Brick, stone, open space, fire breaks. A safer, better London. And here's the kicker. Some people don't like it. Seriously. They argue over land rights, old property lines, and whether the new streets are too foreign-looking. One old woman demands her charred cottage be rebuilt exactly as it was, including the leaky roof. You shake your head and whisper, "Ma'am, your roof tried to kill us all." Still, change creeps in, slowly, like ivy pushing through brick. You help dig ditches for new foundations. You pass a crew making bricks by hand, red ones, glorious, non-flammable red bricks. Progress smells like wet clay and horse sweat. By now, something else is returned, paperwork. Officials go door to non-existent door, taking names, assessing losses, issuing royal proclamations. One flyer declares, "All rebuilding shall use stone or brick, timber strictly limited." Another bans thatched roofs. You cheer internally. Thatched roofs were just bonfires with plumbing. Then there's the strange business of rumors and blame. Some folks whisper that the fire was started by Catholic spies. Others swear it was Dutch saboteurs. A few insist it was caused by someone baking communion wafers too enthusiastically. You don't buy any of it. But the city wants answers, so they find a scapegoat, a poor French watchmaker named Robert Hubert. He confesses to starting the fire, but historians agree he wasn't even in the country when it began. He's hanged anyway. It's one of those historical facts that makes you sigh. London needed someone to blame more than it needed the truth. Still, good things emerge too. Charles II sets up relief funds. Parliament passes new building regulations. Rennes submits plans for a dazzling new St. Paul's Cathedral with a dome no one's ever seen the likes of. It's audacious, some say impossible, but the king approves it. You visit the site often. There's nothing there yet, just scorched earth and scaffolding. But you stand beside the markers and imagine it. A place to gather, to pray, to marvel. A symbol that not everything burns forever. One afternoon, as you're walking past the old Roman wall, yes, parts of it survived. You spot something shiny in the dirt. You dig with your fingers and pull out a silver coin. Melted slightly, but still whole. A small treasure. You hold it up to the sun. It glints. Proof that value can survive destruction. Later that week, you're part of a team laying the first stones for a public hall. Children dance around the site, one of them waving a stick like a scepter. "I'm King of Ashland," he declares. You bow low. "Your Majesty, may your kingdom never catch fire." And people laugh. Again, not out of madness this time, but resilience. In the evening, you gather around what passes for a hearth, a metal grate filled with glowing coals. Someone sings a song about London's past. Another starts a new one about its future. The melodies don't match, but no one minds. It's all music. You lean back, resting your head on your arms. Your clothes still smell like charcoal. Your hands are blistered, but your heart, lighter. Maybe it's the soup, maybe it's the sky, maybe it's the idea that after fire, you get to build something stronger. And here's a funny thought. One day, someone will read about this in a book. They'll sit in a classroom, sipping coffee, and think, "Wow, must have been awful." You'd want to tell them it was, but also it wasn't, not entirely. Because after the city burned, it breathed again. And so did you. The years that follow the fire are slower to pass than the fire itself, but somehow more profound. You watch as London reshapes itself from ash and memory. Streets that once twisted like a madman's doodle become straight and wide, designed for sunlight and safety. The wooden slums replaced with stone houses, standing proud and resolute like they mean business. You find yourself helping neighbors rebuild, not just their homes, but their lives. There's a strange intimacy in hammering nails together amid the scent of sawdust and freshly fired bricks. Each new wall feels like a promise. We survived and we're not done yet. Christopher Wren's new St. Paul's rises slowly, like a giant waking up from a long, smoky nap. It's nothing like the old cathedral, and that's the point. It's grander, bolder, and somehow warmer. The dome's silhouette begins to puncture the London skyline, a beacon reminding you that destruction isn't the end. You also notice smaller changes, less obvious but just as important. New laws banished eroded wooden balconies and jammed markets. Fire departments become official. No more bucket brigades relying on panicked civilians. The city learns, stumbles, and grows. One afternoon, you pass a school where children play with new toys, wooden hoops, tops, and dolls made from scraps salvaged after the fire. Their laughter spills into the streets, filling spaces once too charred for sound. Sometimes you catch yourself staring at the sky, wondering if the Great Fire truly was a cleansing or a curse. Historians still debate whether the rebuilding was driven more by necessity or visionary ambition. Maybe it was both. You recall the burnt pages of that psalm you found during the fire, the one you tucked in your pocket, barely noticing at the time. You still carry it now, edges charred but words faintly glowing. It's a reminder of survival, faith, and stubborn hope. Years later, you attend the first service in the new St. Paul's Cathedral. The organ's first notes ripple through the space, echoing off fresh stone walls. You sit quietly, feeling the weight of history around you. You think about the city that burned, the people who fled, the lives lost and saved. London has changed forever, but it's still London. As you leave, a street vendor calls out, "Fresh sausage rolls, only slightly burnt." You chuckle, remembering that woman in Southwark and her defiant cart. Some things never change. The city moves forward, always forward. And you, well, you keep walking those streets, bruised but unbroken. Because you're part of the story now. The story of fire, ash, and renewal.